clarify the main? Can I clarify the main point? Because I forgot to mention that eating meat in some cases, I like to like put the emphasis on some cases, can be like worse than like veganism can be worse than eating in some cases.
I kind of assumed you were going to be arguing something like free range grass fed cattle is better to eat that kind of diet than to eat like a standard vegan diet. So is that something you are sort of arguing?
Yeah, I'm arguing against 100% plant-based diet approach because I don't think it's the most optimal thing in reducing suffering.
Right. Yeah.
And if the goal is to reduce suffering, it's not the best approach.
Yeah, and do you have an argument for why it's not the best approach to abstain from purchasing products that entail suffering or from exploiting animals that would entail suffering?
Yeah, because the definition of veganism is having a lifestyle which is to minimize exploitation of animals in an unnecessary way. Maybe you might need animals to survive, but that's something else. Like with grass-fed meat, like do you understand like that the idea of crop deaths?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm familiar with crop deaths.
Yeah, so I can send you a link, but then like there's like you can choose to eat like one cow, and the amount of calories in one cow can like sustain you for like a year. That would be like one life. But if you were to eat soybeans or lettuce, like the amount of crop deaths that involves like small little mice, birds, like rabbits, like you're killing like sentient things. And I would choose the one that like kills the least amount of sentient things, right? And maybe you don't have to go full carnivore and like only meat. You can have like plant-based, and you can have like some grass-fed beef into that, which is more ethical, like than it's, you know.
Yeah, well, first of all, I'll say that I think crop deaths are bad, and I want to reduce crop deaths as much as possible. But it seems to me like you're making an argument based on consequences, like the consequences for the animals, and simply the consequence. It's like a death count thing. There are more deaths in the crop death situation than there are deaths in the farming situation. But I don't think that every style of veganism falls under that view. In fact, mine does not fall under a consequentialist view. I take a deontological view. So the types of deaths are very different in the crop death case and in the animal agriculture case. And I will grant that it's bad. Crop deaths are bad, but it's a very different situation. So, for example, I think that it's wrong to use the cow merely as a product, like to raise it just so that I can kill it and eat it and then make clothing out of its skin. That in and of itself, I think, violates the animal's rights. And so that's wrong, in my opinion. And so I have a duty to not do that to an animal.
So like your main point is that you don't want to exploit animals because like they're why? Because like you still exploit animals and kill them like either way, right? So you might as well choose the least.
I don't think that crop deaths are exploiting the animal. I think that it kills them. I think crop deaths end up killing the animals, but I don't consider that a type of exploitation. I'm not using a crop death animal as a product for what I'm doing. So there's a difference between violating the animal's rights and then defending something.
How's that morally wrong? Like, how's it morally wrong to like use a cow like for sustenance? Like it's like one versus killing like multiple animals. Like you're still killing.
I sort of just take like a Kantian view and I extend it to animals. So in my ethical position, like a human is an end in and of itself. It needs no justification in order to survive or live. I extend that same quality of it being an end to animals that have sentience. So a cow has sentience. So I would consider the cow to be an end in and of itself. They need no justification to live. But I would have to justify taking that cow's life unnecessarily because as an end in and of myself, I owe a duty to other creatures that are like me to extend that same type of well-being that I would want extended to myself. I would not want to be farmed like a cow. I would not want to have my throat slit. I would not want to have my life taken away from me in my adolescence. All of those things would be wrong for me. And if I consider a cow to be an int like I am, I extend the same moral consideration to that cow that I would for myself, regardless of the cow being rational or not, just because it's sentient and can feel pain and suffering.
Regardless of its if it be
rationality,
rational.
It's only about the sentience of the cow.
The sentience of the cow. Okay,
yeah,
that's an interesting view.
To go a little bit farther, we can go into the crop death case, and I'll just provide a reductio. If there were a situation where there was someone in my life, like let's say someone broke into my house and they were continually
so your goal isn't what? Yeah, okay,
well,
go on.
It's just a reductio of the crop death situation. Let's say that someone broke into my house. They were continually eating my food. They would not stop eating my food. Every method I tried where it was peaceful to get them to stop eating my food, everything I tried, they just would not do it. And I had to make the choice between this thing that would not stop or could not be reasoned with and killing that thing versus letting myself die. I would choose to kill the thing that would be doing that. There would be a justification for the crop death, while there is no justification for killing the cow.
That's an interesting view, and I agree with you, because like if someone's like taking your food away from you, like, I don't mind killing that thing if you can't reason with it, because it's not a rational being, right? It's sentient, but it's not rational. So yeah, like Kant, is it Kantianism or something?
Kant. Like, it's from Immanuel Kant, and I just say Kantian,
because my like paradigm is like about reducing suffering. So like the thing about Kant is that I have no clue, like, to be honest, it is. Right. But yeah, like, but if like a vegan chooses to reduce suffering, and that's their goal, not Kantianism, then like that's the wrong approach. But with your approach, it's different, because like
I mean, I too want to reduce.
Like, you don't care about reduced suffering. Like you don't.
I do care about it, but there's a difference with what kind of duty I have. So in the case of the cattle, I have a perfect duty, meaning I am always obligated to not use that cow as a product. But I do not have a perfect duty to not kill the animal eating my crop. In that case, it's an imperfect duty. I should consider it. I should try not to do it, but I am not obligated in the same way I am for the perfect duty. So I want to reduce crop deaths. I absolutely do. And I think the criticism that crop deaths are killing lots of animals is a good criticism, and it's something that vegans should face. But there's another problem with that argument. There's something called teleology, or do you know what that is?
Teleology?
It's basically like the end goal of something. So you could say the teleology of veganism would be to reduce animal suffering, regardless of if it's Kantian or if it's utilitarian. And I think what your argument is trying to make is that the goal of that philosophical way of living will cause suffering with the crop deaths. And then because it causes suffering with the crop deaths, it fails to fulfill its goal. That's your argument, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah,
you summed it nicely.
Yeah, exactly. And I think what that criticism really does is criticize like our farming practices, but it's not a criticism of the philosophical way of living itself.
Yeah, it's not for like the criticism of future may entail. Like, let's say there's a vertical future where like you can go like and have a plant-based like lifestyle, right? And you can like have no crop deaths. Like, that's the future. But currently, right now, more animals suffer when you 100% based on to grass-fed beef, or even like backyard chicken. Like, you can have that, or eat oysters or clams. Like, they don't have brain. Like, that's a whole different thing. Like, that's not meat. Like, we're talking about meat, which is kind of different.
So
I don't want to be like dogmatic and just follow this one. Oh, I have to eat 100% plant-based because that's like the most morally like the best thing. Like you might disagree with me, but like I think that actually farmed animals are way better than just leaving in the wild. Because like if you abolished farmed animals, then they have to go to the wild. And, like statistically, like deers, like 60% of them like die before reaching the age of.
Yeah.
It's actually pretty brutal. And
Yeah, it's
they
a
get
really
eaten
brutal.
alive.
I totally agree
They
with you. It's
starve to
like
death.
it's
Freeze to
absolute.
death. Like it's actually.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Like the natural state of things is totally brutal. It is really, really brutal. But I don't think that it's a moral claim either way. And I think that veganism, I think veganism itself doesn't have that. The end goal of veganism doesn't necessarily mean that it's to stop animal suffering in the wild. That's a great thing. We totally should think about that. But veganism is a philosophical way of living to stop the exploitation of animals, using animals as a product, which is specifically about the ways that we farm them. So even though a lot of vegans might want to stop animal suffering in the wild, that's not the teleology of veganism. The end goal of veganism is about this exploitation aspect and finding a way to live where you reduce that.
What's with like this exploitative concepts, like, so like if they suffer, then that doesn't matter. Like it's about like not exploiting them. Like we're okay with killing like way more animals, but like save this one animal because we don't want to exploit that one animal. Like you're choosing to, like maybe it's like a libertarian view you have, like where like you value like individual rights. You want that to be applied to all sorts of lives that are sentient. Like is that like your case?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I see why it can seem a little bit contradictory, but basically the only way that like an all beef free range cow diet works is if other people are putting their calories into things like these crops and other really shitty farming practices like the factoring farming. If you scaled up this free range grass fed beef thing so that only people ate that in the United States, there would not be enough food for everyone. The amount of land needed for those cows to survive, like it's not scalable.
100%. It's not. Yeah. It's definitely not. What do you call it? Scalable to like the US. Well, like I'm from Australia, so 90% of our cattle, like sheep, other sort of animals, like they're actually grass fed because we have so much land. It's only like 20 million people, and we have a land size of the US, so that's like a lot of land free ranged.
Yeah, and the Great Barrier Reef is being destroyed by all the cattle farming that's happening. I think, like the runoff.
Like I actually think that like if we take an approach to like grass fed beef, like it would be like way more expensive. There'll be like less meat to like factory farms, but I think it's a way more approach. Like environmentally, like it's also a really, really like solid idea because like there's a TED talk on Alan Savory and he explains sustainable farming. So
I find that stuff really cool. Like the sustainable farming thing is really interesting to me, especially like living in California where forest fires are a really big problem. Like a long time ago, we had animals that would graze in the forest and they would eat all these small bushes. So the forest fires wouldn't be as bad. But then we killed out a lot of them and we put all these animals in a small farm space. And then the forests like had these huge overgrowth problems and there's so much fuel and there are a lot of fires. But my position would be we could take the cows that we're like using right now to farm them. But instead of farming them, we could just let them go out into the wild and rewild the farmland. The cows could now be the grazing animals in some areas, and we could sort of control them so they don't overeat one area. We could maybe guide them in certain areas, and we could use it as a way to prevent forest fires. And there could be a sustainable way that we use these animals that were being used for like leather and gelatin and our steaks and all of that stuff. But instead, they could just live these happy free range lifestyles in California, where they're free from something like a knife to the throat at the end of their life.
Yeah. Actually, knife to the throat. Like, yeah. Like, they can be like a good asset. Like, and we're kind of like technically using it to create like more like grasslands, which is like great. I think we should be able to like. Let me think of like an example. A legit like I had a point. Like I kind of like lost it. Like I was like lost in conversation.
Oh, it's all good.
Yeah. Like I'm pretty sure that like you value like animal rights, right? And you
I totally
understand
value
like,
animal rights, and yeah, I personally like I will take a spider out of my house, and I don't want to kill ants or anything like that. Like when I'm walking on the street, I sort of keep an eye out for bugs I might step on. Like I definitely care about even these really, really small ass animals that other people don't care about. Totally.
You know, the thing is that what's your thoughts on like hunting in general? Let's say in Australia we have more kangaroos than actual like humans, right? There's so many kangaroos, and it's because of like there's not enough predators. Like they got like hunted down previously. They're like endangered, and like we need to have that balance, because like if the kangaroo population gets out of control, then they end up eating up all of the vegetation, and they'll end up starving to death. So that's a huge problem. Regardless, there has to be something to balance out their population, or like there's going to be massive like suffering. Like it's kind of like you can't reduce that suffering. And like
I think
like,
that's a good
right
point.
now, like there's so much kangaroo meat in the supermarket, and there's no kangaroo farms because people just hunt. Yeah, so I eat kangaroo, and I think that that's like a really, really ethical thing, because like if the wolf is not going to eat it, then if we eat it, then it's fine. Like, and you can say like, oh, it's exploiting or something, but that's nature. Like, it's they're always going to suffer. And like cows, with like grass-fed cow and cattle, I think we're providing them like this safe haven of an area where they can live out their life without getting like mowed down by like a predator. And I think that's like, if like then I have this social contract with other humans, because they can't even comprehend what's like freedom or anything. They just eat grass, and that's all they think about, grass.
Right. So there was a lot there. I'm going to try and tackle everything. If I forget something, I'm sorry. So fine. Your original question
I'll just let you talk from.
Okay, your original question is about hunting. So I will say that on my view, I think that hunting the animal would be better than farming the animal. But I still think that killing the animal and using its body as a product would be bad. And I think I want to relate this back to the idea that veganism is a philosophical way to reduce this exploitation and killing these animals and the suffering that happens. And I think the way of choosing that lifestyle would prevent someone from going hunting and killing the animal. I think killing the animal would entail some suffering. Like I grew up in a hunting culture. I've actually killed animals myself. I've skinned them. And the way that I was taught to handle killing animals was very different than the way that animals were treated on the farm. There was like a very respectful element given to the animal hunted. The animal was free for most of its life, and then it was killed. So I can see it being more ethical from a relative instance against the farmed animal. But I still think at the end of the day, taking that animal's right to life is where I have a problem. Like everything was fine for the animal on my view until the end there. And the question of like, what do we do with all of these predators, you know? I think that not predators, but the kangaroos. I don't know much about Australia's ecology. I don't know what kind of natural predators existed there, if they were hunted out or not. I do know in the United States, wolves were killed and pushed out because of the competition with farming and the livestock that the wolves were eating. So now there are no natural predators in the ecosystem in the United States. So we have an overabundance of deer, and kangaroo overpopulating is probably similar to the deer overpopulating things in the United States. And there's a problem that we have a lot of problems with deer overeating certain types of vegetables certain types of plants. And that's changing the way that the forest is growing and the biodiversity of the plants in the forest. Now, there was this really interesting solution that happened in Yellowstone where they reintroduced a pack of wolves. And when they did that, the deer and the elk and all of the animals that the wolves were eating stopped eating all the plants on the riverside. And so there was less erosion that happened, and it changed the way that the rivers flowed. It helped keep populations in control, so there wasn't this overeating of certain types of plants, etc. And Yellowstone, the entire environment, the whole system, all of these trophic levels just started to thrive in ways that they hadn't before, simply by introducing one wolf pack. And it was incredible. All of these, like the predator eating these smaller animals, it has this huge like cascade effect on all of this other stuff. And so I don't see why the same thing couldn't happen in Australia. And right now, hunting is taking the place of a natural predator, and the overpopulation of the kangaroo is happening maybe because the natural predators were killed. I don't know, but that's how it sort of happened in the United States. So those are the two things I would say about the hunting. Maybe I missed something else. But I think with veganism, the whole point of it is to try and end animal suffering. We agree on that. And I think the way of living would always be looking for ways to reduce it. So even if there are crop deaths, a vegan lifestyle would be a way of living, trying to reduce that type of suffering. The same thing for the farming. It would be across all realms possible. You still there, Goku? Maybe he has internet problems right now. Sorry, when you leave the chat, yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, I was trying to talk the whole time. I was like, yeah. So can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard that. That was actually pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Like I didn't know that happened in America as well. Like, because I'm only aware of like Australia's stuff.
Yeah.
I live here. Yeah, I think veganism, which is in a plant-based diet approach, could be a good idea if we had the technology like lab-grown meat or even vertical farming. But right now, in its current state, I think it's not the most optimal or like 100% like the best thing you could do for the animals if you're just doing it for the ethics or maybe environment as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think the argument for going vegan is like the herd immunity argument.
Herd immunity, what's that?
Yeah. So in herd immunity, everyone gets vaccinated. And then because everyone's vaccinated, the spread of the disease won't be really rampant. And then you can save people who can't get vaccinated.
Yeah.
So if more people went plant-based and vegan, and let's just assume that there's a human out there that literally has to eat meat, that there's something magical in meat and they have to eat, then the herd immunity of everyone being plant-based would allow for someone to eat meat in this like ethical way or whatever. But in order for that meat to be sustainable and ethical, it would require the bulk of calories to be plant-based and plant-focused.
I'm not sure about that because in Australia we have a lot of meat and a lot of it's like grass-fed, so we can sustain our income just eating mostly.
What?
It's possible. Like in the US, maybe it's a US thing, but like in my country, it's like I would say it's like the most ethical. Like let's say if every single like deer population, like I'm not sure, I'm just speculating, like I'm just throwing random ideas around. because the goal of this debate is to like have a discussion. What's the most ethical thing? Maybe like if we all throw around.
Well, yeah, I mean, wild animal suffering isn't an ethical consideration because I'm not the one causing. As a moral agent, I'm not the one that's directly harming that wild animal. Like a deer getting killed by a wolf is not a moral problem for me because the wolf is not a rational agent. The deer is not a rational agent. I'm not doing anything.
Agreed. You know, like, we're moral agents, so we have like the capacity of choosing what's the most moral thing. And like I can flip this around, right? And I can say like you're the moral agent, so you know that brutal killing of the wolf on the deer is really bad. And maybe if we just removed all the wolves and we just hunted them, that would be way better because a headshot's way better than getting mauled. Like because I heard wolves would actually maul out like the kidneys of sheep, and and the sheep would have no kidneys, and then like we'll just go for another like animal.
They eat animals alive. Like it's brutal. At least humans will mercy kill animals before eating them. But like carnivores, they don't give a shit. They will literally eat the animal alive.
They don't actually think it's fun. Like they actually enjoy it.
It's terrible. And I really have a hard time watching it like on nature documentaries. Like it's very gory to me to see that. Like it is a suffering thing. But again, I don't think that the vegan lifestyle would try to reduce things like that ultimately, even if I don't think that it would be a moral consideration.
You know, I have an idea. Do you want to listen?
Listen to what?
How about we kill all of the animals so there'll be no suffering like ever again? That'll be the complete vegan world. Just kill all the animals.
There are
Does that
some
make
people.
Sense to you?
There are people who like to do that. There's this type of utilitarianism called negative utilitarianism that can lead to ethilism, which is like killing everything.
That's shit. Yeah, just killing yourself. Like that's just stupid.
Yeah, but if you're gonna kill all animals to stop suffering, you should kill all humans to stop suffering too, and then just kill every living thing. Well, yeah.
So again, the rabbit hole of suffering, like
from my ethical
suffering, so kill yourself.
Yeah, from my ethical position, I have an imperfect duty to always improve myself and to survive, which entails living. And other creatures being an end in and of themselves, I have a perfect duty to not murder them for no reason, or to kill them unnecessarily, rather. I'll not use murder in that case. And I have a perfect duty not to use them as a means. So when we're talking about something being ethical or not, I can answer from my ethical position. When we talk about veganism, we can talk about the teleology of veganism, the philosophical way of living to reduce this animal suffering. And those things can be different.
Can you hear me?
I can now.
There's something wrong with it. It's always cutting me. So like what kind of YouTubers you tend to watch, like veganism?
Huh?
I'm just curious. What kind of YouTubers you tend to watch when it comes to vegan?
Well, I kind of started with the typical stuff like
so I feel like you watch Earthling Ed. Do you watch that?
Yeah, I started with Earthling Ed.
Yeah, and you know what, man, the way you fucking talk, man, it's like the same shit he says. Which I do kind of agree with. And like, like the best thing about like debates, right? It's so good that we can have this debate is that we can throw around disagreeing opinions. With that, we can generate like the best ideas, which is like the most ethical thing to do, you know?
Yeah.
It's good to have these kind of discussions.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's really good for vegans to hear criticisms about veganism, like what you're saying. Like it's really good for us to hear like crop deaths are causing animals to die, and the way they're dying is terrible. Like the birds are eating a poison, and so they suffocate because their blood cannot absorb oxygen. It's so terrible, and that is a direct cause where the human is intentionally putting that poison there to kill the animal. So I do think we're responsible for that. But I think that, like I talked about earlier in the beginning, it's different. There's an intentionality that's different in the cow that's being farmed versus defending your crops, you know? And I think that the vegan position, the vegan lifestyle, that would try to find a way to get rid of that. It's not vegans that are going out there and poisoning their crops. It's the farmers and the industry that's trying to protect their crops. The vegans are actually trying to fight for reducing those types of pesticides out there. And the veganism itself would be one of those people that's trying to, make the change to lower animal suffering. Maybe you left chat? Weird. Sorry, Goku, you were server muted because I think maybe you left chat and re-entered.
I left it because what's a closing statement?
It's kind of like your opening statement, like why you think your proposition is correct. And the closing statement would just be like, well, based on this proposition, here's why I think that I made this case, or why I still think it's true, etc. Or you could say like, you agree with me and I won the debate. That would be nice too.
Okay. I guess I agree with you. Whatever, Yeah, we can keep eating plants. That's fine. That's good.
Cool. I think I basically made
throwing around random ideas. I'm just throwing around random ideas around.
I see. Yeah. Yeah. I basically made my case, my last statement with the final statement with what I just said. So,
eating plants, like it's still better than like eating factory animals, right?
Yeah.
And like grass fed, like that's like it's like more suffering. Like do whatever like you think that's like the best for you. That's my advice.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you, Goku, for debating. I really appreciate it.
What's like the normal debate topics of usually?
You can pick anything you want. Like if you can just make a proposition like, I want to debate this, and then Ahmad will say if it's a good or not. Kind of like what you did when you came in the server, and I sort of guided you through making the request.
All right, I gotta go now because I've got a test I have to study for. So yeah, good luck with your server.
Yeah, thanks so much, Goku.
Yeah, see you.
Cool, nice debate, man. Good job. I think you did great.
Thanks.
Dude,
I think Slayer wants to go at it.